Okay, so next on the stage we have Wendy Harrington. Let me tell you a little bit about Wendy. Wendy Harrington is an expert in silencing the inner critic. A near-death experience in 2001 ignited a deep exploration into the transformative power of our spiritual connection. Wendy is the author of 2 books, Process and Prosper, Why It's Essential to Cry, Stamp Your Feet and Get Angry, and How It Can Save Your Life, and From Vegas to the Pearly Gates, a gritty, true life account of love at its best and absolute worst. With a genuine and heartfelt approach, Wendy helps people transcend the limitations of their ego and awaken to the truth of their own powerful, conscious, creative abilities. Please welcome to the stage, Wendy.
As I lay there in that hospital bed in the intensive care unit, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I looked down at my mutilated body, this red, raw flesh, the remnants of what was left from what had been removed. You see, I had contracted necrotizing fasciitis, more commonly known as the flesh-eating disease, following the birth of my 3rd daughter by emergency cesarean section. Necrotizing fasciitis literally means death of the tissue, and there is no treatment for it other than to remove the diseased flesh. It goes black. And so surgeons had removed my womb, ovaries, and 2/3 of the flesh on my torso in an attempt to save my life, before putting me into a medical coma. While I was in that coma, I had a near-death experience. The very first thing I was aware of was that I was not my body. I was still aware of myself, that same self that I have always been aware of, no matter what age I am. You probably know it too in yourself. And I was aware of that, and I knew I was not in my body. And I distinctly remember thinking, I'm not my body. I exist beyond it. And then I was floating in the most amazing light. Words will never do it justice. Peace, love, bliss, tranquility. I was so happily going. When all of a sudden there was a tug on my arm, and I looked back, and it was my husband. I tried to pull him to come with me because I really wanted to go, but he would not budge. I could see forms taking shape ahead of me. And then I heard telepathically, if you come, you must come on your own. I didn't want to leave him. And so that momentum subsided, and I came back to my body. Now here's an interesting thing. 2 years before that happened, I had had a tarot card reading. And there was a moment where she indicated my lower abdomen and she said, you have a dark area there. It's mother issues, and if you don't sort it out, you'll be ill. I had no concept at that time of how our psychological inner conflict could manifest as disease in the body. Always fascinated me, that. So it was already there. I was in hospital for 3 months. And then not long after I came home, I had my first experience of automatic writing. I woke in the early hours of the morning with a sentence in my head, and it was just on repeat. And so I got up and I started to write it down. And then the next sentence came, and the next sentence, and the next. And then they told me this: there is love and fear and everything in between, and you can create from either. It is important, in order to have a different experience, that you choose love. And as humans, you are unwittingly choosing fear. So I vowed to be as loving as I could. I was so curious about who was I, like who are we? And I started to explore Eastern philosophy. I studied Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation. And I also did a degree in psychology. Now in psychology, One of the theories for a near-death experience is it's simply something that the brain does at that point in time. And I started to question it. Maybe it was. I'd been on a cocktail of drugs. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't real after all. And then this happened. It was a beautiful day in June. The sun was shining, and I was at Wistman's Wood on Dartmoor. And Wistman's Wood is a place, there's ancient, twisted, stunted, gnarled oaks, and these huge boulders with moss on, and the gorgeous moorland and the river down below. And then I was doing a Tai Chi weekend retreat. And the instructor said, find a tree, and we're going to do an exercise. So I found my tree, or wondering, what is this stuff? But anyway, I found my tree, closed my eyes, and just began to move my hands backwards and forwards. All of a sudden, I lost complete sense of my separate self again. And I met that same love that I met when I had my near-death experience. And the words for it were unconditional love. And I knew that everything came from it and everything returned to it. This love is real. However, despite meeting that profound love on more than one occasion, I was really struggling. I was struggling to come to terms with the disfigurement of my body. I hated it. I thought it was ugly and disgusting. And I was really struggling with negative self-talk, doubt, fear, and this deep sense of unworthiness. And that was when I discovered one of the pieces of the puzzle to help us escape from this psychological suffering that so many of us are in. I traveled to India, to the Oneness University. And this is where I learned that the problem was emotional, not logical. You see, I'd been trying to figure it out with my head. And what I learned was emotional processing. And from that, I created a 4-step method, which I'm going to share with you now, because it is so fundamental to helping us find the freedom and the peace and the love that is our natural essence. So I call it the observer method. Number 1, own it. Number 2, stop thinking. I'll explain that in a minute. I know that's impossible. Number 3, start feeling. And number 4, breathe and observe. So number 1, own it. I had thought that things were happening outside of me. People were doing things, situations were happening, and that was why I was feeling like I felt. And what I learned was, oh no, this is going on inside of me. And when I could take ownership of it and bring the attention back from the outside, I could drop into a deeper place of expansion. Stop thinking. It's impossible, isn't it? I completely agree with you if you're thinking that. And it's not really about stopping thinking. It's just about realizing that the answers that we're looking for when it comes to our freedom, our peace, our inner peace, and our spiritual awakening are not in the intellectual mind. Which brings us nicely to step 3, which is start feeling. So you use the body to feel the sensation of the emotions in the rawness of the energy of them. You see, commonly what we're doing is we're trying to make sense of, why do I feel like that? What happened? Oh, that's linked to that happened there. And what I discovered is when you pull those things apart, you can feel the rawness of the energy of the emotion itself. Emotion, energy in motion. And when you do that from a place of number 4, where you're just breathing and observing, everything opens up and you get a much deeper sense of the wisdom as to why you're struggling with the negative thoughts that you're having. It's a really profound process. So I hope that hearing a bit about my story today has triggered in you, who am I really? And the fact that we are more than we know ourselves to be. If you're curious to explore further with me, I do a free masterclass called Self-Suppression to Soul Expression, where we look at what are some of the other pieces of the puzzle that are keeping us from being in our natural state, actually, of joy and creativity and power and full self-expression of just who we are. I'd love to connect with you on, this has some of my social and other ways to connect with me, so do connect with me. It's always fun to share. And just to say thank you for listening to me today. Thank you for allowing me to share some of my story with you. And I want to leave you with this gorgeous quote from Ram Dass. You are loved just for being who you are, just for existing. You don't have to do anything to earn it. Your shortcomings, your lack of self-esteem, physical perfection, or social and economic success, none of that matters. No one can take this love away from you, and it will always be here. Thank you.